For some insight in the Charleston music scene, stay tuned to Carolina People, coming up next. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're in Charleston, South Carolina, at a famous shopping destination, Luden's. We're visiting with Emily Remmington, the past director and founder of the Singers Guild here in Charleston. Emily, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
So happy to be here.
Incredible opportunity to highlight yourself, and then later this morning, David Stahl.
Yeah.
The opportunity to be in Charleston, featuring so many
Charleston wonderful?
Wonderful events and people here in the city and in the Low Country. It's amazing all week, having seen yesterday Senator McConnell was in, speaking about the Hunley and so many activities there, and Charlie Sneed about the spirit of South Carolina. But to be able to recognize yourself and honor your life, we want to find a little bit about yourself. Are you originally from the area?
No, but my parents were. My parents were from a father from Berkeley County and my mother from Williamsburg. And so I moved back in 1976 to retire here and had 20-plus years of the happiest years of my life. It was just one. Spoleto came the same year I did. I came the same year Spoleto did. And it has just been everybody will tell you the cultural level here is just wonderful, and we are almost where there's something going on every night, either plays or musicals, chamber music. It's like a city. I mean, it's really like a city. But then we have with it all these boats and things. So it's wonderful.
It really is a true maritime city. You said you came in 1976.
Yes.
To retire.
To retire.
And you absolutely did not retire.
Well, I retired about 5 times, to tell you the truth. All the jobs. When I first came, I took the Grace Episcopal Church as organist choir master. Then I was working at the college. And then I did the Singers Guild. So at the end, I've had to retire from this and then from that. And how many more times are you going to retire?
Emily, I know. I'm sure your children have probably asked that same thing. That's
well,
right.
I think I'm finally going to do it. Although I said last year on the Christmas show, I think this will be my last. It's not. I'm going to be on the Christmas show this year.
Sure you
so
will.
One more time.
Yes. Well, hopefully if some viewers are down in Charleston at that time, they'll have the opportunity to get out there. It's probably almost sold out, if not already.
I think it is.
Emily, did you have any formal music training?
Yes. I started piano when I was 5, and I finished Coker College in Hartsville, South Carolina.
Yes.
And then I went to Juilliard for 2 years. In the summers, I studied at Chicago Musical College and at the in Baltimore at the Peabody. And I've continued. I was going to be a professional pianist, which I was until love got me, and and I married, and I have 2 lovely children, both of whom are musical, and so the career was put on the second burner. That is, the family had to be first, and the career was second. Yeah.
Before you moved to Charleston, were you involved in the arts before moving here in 76?
Oh, yes. Very much so. I moved to Augusta, that is, we moved, Dr. Remmington and I moved to Augusta in 1942, when the war was still, that is, there was still, Augusta was just decimated by the number of people who had left, and there was not a singing organization. And I had been in New York, you see, we lived there in Princeton 4 years, plus New York 2 years, and I had heard the St. Matthew Passion and the St. John Passion and the Verdi Requiem, and I thought, my heavens, in this little town, I'll die without ever having sung those things myself. So I decided we needed a choral society. So I founded that in 1951 and conducted for 25 years. Not straight. I also lived in Munich for 6 years, which was a wonderful experience, and learned so much there. And then I came back to Augusta, and they gave it back to me. They kept saying, are you coming back next year? I went to stay 4 years and stayed all that time. Are you coming back next year? Well, I don't know. I think so.
Emily,
yes,
now, what took you all to Munich?
Well, the first time my husband had an exchange professorship, but when I went in 1970, I went to be, as I worked with singers at the National Opera. David Stahl, you know, is a conductor in Munich. And I found so much work there. I was very happy. And actually, I'd still be there if I had not started having grandchildren, and if I could have learned the language. I could get around, you know, the store. One knows how to eat and find that. But to talk about philosophy or politics or things of that nature, the vocabulary wasn't that good, and I knew it would just take work to get it there.
A lot of work.
A lot of work, yeah.
Real quick about the Augusta Choral Society. Is it still performing?
Oh, yes. And I wish I had checked up on this. I conducted the Messiah there 2 years ago, and then last year they made me conductor emerita. Not emeritus, but emerita. I didn't know that. This past year won the highest award that Georgia gives for a performing organization. And I wish I could tell you what that is, but it was by the NEA something. I don't know if that's right or not, but they won the highest award on that and for performing. And that's over Atlanta. You know, I mean, I'm very proud of it.
That's amazing. It was founded in 51.
51.
So it's been going now more than 5 decades.
Yeah, oh, yes.
That's amazing. Well, I know when I think I was telling you earlier before we started that I had called somebody who's now in Myrtle Beach, Tim Cook.
Oh, yes,
who gave
I
you the
know
names
him
of a couple
very well.
places. He mentioned yourself,
Wonderful musician.
yourself and David Stahl, who'll be on later this morning. Of course, he also mentioned that big award that the Augusta Choral Society recently won, and said this is something that Emily started more than 5 decades ago. The ability that's run. He said it's barely running without her, but they're doing an incredible job.
It's doing well.
How about when you moved here in '76? Were you involved in music before beginning the Singers Guild?
Yes, I didn't want to be because I was going to retire and not do anything that I'd done before. But I got the college position first, and Grace Church was 1 block away from the college, and they needed an organist, and I took it. Well, I said I'll do it 1 year or 2 years. Stayed 19 years and 9 months, and so that's what I was really doing when. But before I came, I wrote to. I found out from a friend of mine who lives here, Barry Goldsmith, who is very much in the arts field, and asked him if there was a place for the choral singing group. And he said yes, and the tenor is the head of the board of the symphony called Richard Elmer, Dr. Richard Elmer. So I did, and with their help and the help of Jane Hill, we advertised auditions and had about 140 come out for the first time for auditions. We sang, that is, the Charleston singers now are probably normally about 130. And we changed names. I still call it the Guild because, you know, it's a rut. But when I left, they decided, since they had joined with an arm of the symphony, that it would be better to have it called the Symphony Singers. So that's wonderful.
Emily, did you perform with the group?
Yes, like I told you, I'm going to make one more Christmas.
Oh, yes.
I performed with them through 1996. Or 1997, excuse me. And since that time, I have been invited back for a cameo. I do the sing-along, and I always have some gimmick, you know, that makes everybody laugh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So you've performed recently?
Yes, last Christmas and again this Christmas.
Right.
I also performed with Nancy Stedman, who is a Broadway star who's now in Charleston, and she does Divas of the Silver Screen, and I am her accompanist, and we've done shows all the way from New York down, so we still perform.
How many singers are now, not to cut you off, excuse me, how many singers are now in the Singers Guild?
About 130, yeah.
Okay.
I'm not real sure, but in that area.
You're still active in supporting the Charleston Symphony and, of course,
yes,
the chorus? Yes,
very much so, yeah.
How about any favorite memory associated with the Singers Guild?
I have 3 memories that I'd like to tell you about. The most wonderful musical memory is a Brahms Requiem, which they are going to do this weekend, by the way, with the symphony, in 1988 in the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist. That was a moving performance. It was an inspired performance on the part of the singers. It was just wonderful, and the tape proves it. The other one is a funny one. After Hugo, the Gaillard was destroyed practically, and musical instruments, and we had to meet in the King Street Palace, which is designed for boxing. So here we are singing about the coming of Christ with Budweiser and whatever the beers are. All of it. It was not the best atmosphere. So I decided that, and it was like a football field, so I decided that we had to go, that if the singers came out from backstage and came down, well, in all their sparkling clothes, and I came up the aisle, it would keep the action going everywhere.
Right.
Well, everything was fine until I got to the podium. I didn't pull up my dress. I was dressed in white with feathers. I chewed feathers all night. They were around my family, around on a little coattail and around the bottom. And I didn't pull my dress up on the last step, and I fell. Well, I did a dance with the stand first. And then the stand went, and my baton went, my mitts went, my glasses went, and the music went, and I fell in a viola's lap, practically. He said, I looked up, and I thought it was a chicken fight. So that's a memory that stays with me, because one doesn't fall off the podium very often. And the other one is much more serious, and I'm very proud of this. It happened that Jessie Norman was, I worked with her in Augusta. She came to me when she was 15, and she was such a marvelous soloist that I asked her to sing with it. This was in 1960 to 62, and the situation was very difficult between whites and blacks at that time. And in the particular position, I was teaching at Payne College, which is a wonderful black college in Augusta, and I also was teaching at Augusta College, which I had a college choir, and then I had the Augusta Choral Society. So we did a Messiah, and I had the orchestra here, and I put the white choir here and the black choir here, and pretty soon somebody said, why don't the sopranos get together? I don't know why not. I didn't have to say a word. They fused, the whole choir fused, and we sang that Messiah. Then John Kennedy was killed, and we did a memorial concert. And again, and I really am very proud of what music was able to do in making a peaceful transition in Augusta, Georgia. I really cannot say enough. For Jessie, the first time I had Jessie sing with us, I had her, she was to go out like a soloist would do, and I got worried somebody might shoot her because we had had a drive-by shooting. And so I said, Jessie, you better not. You better stand right in the front row. And so she sang, it's a grand night for singing from the front row. Isn't that terrible? And she's a world-class star.
That's amazing.
But we had fun. And she helped me do that.
That's amazing. Yeah. Emily Remmington, one of the prime reasons why the races were brought together in Augusta, a recognition of using music to bring together so many lives. More than 5 decades, the Augusta Choral Society, and then the Singers Guild here in Charleston, now the Charleston Symphony Chorus. Emily, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Oh, it's wonderful. Thank you for inviting me. Appreciate it.
Stay tuned for more Carolina People coming up next. Good morning. Welcome back to Carolina People. This morning we're in Charleston, South Carolina. We're visiting at Luden's, a travel destination in the Charleston area, and we're visiting with David Stahl, the conductor and music director of the Charleston Symphony Orchestra. David, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Good morning, Greg.
Incredible opportunity to highlight so many lives here in the Charleston area and events going on. Obviously, Emily Remmington on right before you. Can we talk real quick about yourself? Are you originally from the area?
Do I sound like I come from Charleston? No. I grew up in New York City. I'm a New York boy, and all I knew about South Carolina was that one of my heroes was Bobby Richardson. Since I was a New York Yankee fan, he was the hero of the 1960 World Series, and he was from South Carolina. And I knew that Red Butler was from Charleston. So that was about it, other than the Civil War starting here. So coming down here has been a real love affair over the last almost 20 years now.
Over the almost last 20 years.
I've lived here for almost 20 years.
Amazing. And how long have you been with the Charleston Symphony Orchestra?
In that time. I came here in 1984.
Okay.
As music director of the orchestra.
Can you talk real quick, and obviously you can't talk quickly about your musical career, but can you tell the viewers a little bit about your musical career?
Well, I grew up in New York and had a wonderful music training in New York City, had tremendous opportunity to go to concerts and opera performances and listen to great music on the radio. But studying at Tanglewood, which was the summer home of the Boston Symphony with one of my idols, not Mickey Mantle, Leonard Bernstein, was a real turning point. And I got to work with him quite a bit in the 80s, conducting West Side Story on Broadway. I was assistant conductor of the New York Philharmonic, traveled a lot all over the world, conducted West Side Story, not just on Broadway, but in Europe. But coming here in 1984 and building the Charleston Symphony Orchestra into one of the great cultural forces of the South, to the point where we now have a season that runs virtually 10 months of the year from mid-September to mid-June every year, with concerts almost every weekend. And I divide my time. I spend 3 to 4 months of the year overseas, guest conducting, and also as chief conductor of an opera house in Munich, Germany. So I get the best of both worlds. I get to conduct symphony concerts here in Charleston and opera in a tremendously cultural city like Munich. So it's an interesting commute between Charleston and Munich, two really arguably beautiful, culturally rich cities of the world.
Even with travels throughout the world and obviously the experiences that much of the year in Munich, would you consider Charleston home, or that's...
There is no question that Charleston is home. In fact, we just built a house on deep water, and I've got pluff mud in my toes. Both our children were born here, and Charleston is definitely home. And every time I fly in from Atlanta and look down and see the Low Country, I just can't wait to get out and feel that teeming humidity after being in very cold, dry weather in Munich. Munich, let's face it, is a wonderful city for the arts, tremendous support for the arts from the government, which all comes out of taxes, a year-round cultural calendar, which in our opera house alone, we have over 350 performances annually in our house. And we're one of 2 opera houses in Munich. We're the junior of the 2 houses. The big house also has about 300 performances a year. So, plus there are about 4 or 5 orchestras in this one city. And every night there are half a dozen or more great world-class events going on. In Charleston, we can focus on our weekly events. And that's been a great joy, that building this orchestra and knowing that the quality of music making that goes on a weekly basis, whether we're playing light music, pops music, dance music, operetta, Brahms symphonies, Mozart, chamber music, anything this orchestra touches, from the biggest large-scale choral music like Messiah to intimate chamber music, is really world-class, and we're very proud of it.
David, when you're talking to folks in Munich and you're discussing what's now your home, Charleston, how do you describe Charleston to folks in Munich, and what do they think of?
It's hard for them to comprehend until they come here and visit. And
Sure.
I've had singers sing with the Charleston Symphony. They all want to come over here, and because of our budget restrictions, we can't pay tremendous fees, and I'm able to get some of my best singers for virtually nothing to come over here just for expenses. And when they come over here, they finally say to me, David or Maestro, now we know why you won't leave Charleston. They understand it. For as much as you are involved in a cultural richness on a very high professional level in Europe, the living, the quality of living, the standard of living doesn't begin to compare with what we have here. And it's very special when you describe just how few minutes it takes to drive from here to there, or the convenience you can go shopping, the ease with which you can get concert tickets. We sometimes complain about traffic and about commuting, and it takes 20 minutes as it used to take 13. Well, people take trains and ride streetcars or subways, and it takes them an hour to get to work. Either way, each way, I mean, it's no comparison.
David, Can you tell the viewers a little bit about the 67th season? How's it going so far?
We're having a great season with the Charleston Symphony. In fact, we opened with two of my best singers from Munich doing almost like opera hits, opera pops on opening night at the end of September. The audience loved it. We've already played in various parts of the state. We were up in Clemson a few weeks ago with a packed house. And since we played in Clemson, they have won every game. So it's wonderful to play for young people. We've played in the Pawleys Island area, in Georgetown. We've played in Sumter. We've played in Waldoboro. We play regularly around the state of South Carolina. We are very proud of the fact that our musicians can, at a moment's notice, play almost any kind of repertoire. Like I said, from pops music, from country music. We've accompanied the Moody Blues. We've played concerts with rock singers. We've played here in the Music Barn in Charleston, which is a real college hangout for pop music. And we can play the big Beethoven symphonies and operas. I'm very proud of the ability of the orchestra, and this season is wonderful. Now, right now in December, any of your viewers who are coming down to Charleston or thinking of coming down to Charleston, we've got concerts on Friday and Saturday and Sunday between now and Christmas, virtually nonstop. A gospel program, a gospel Christmas program with the Symphony Gospel Choir, the Symphony Chorus singing a holiday program. This coming Saturday night, we're playing music that was featured in Disney's Fantasia, Nutcracker, Beethoven Symphony. It's exciting to see and hear the breadth of music, the variety of music that we have to offer. It's like an artist, and he has that palette with all those colors on it. You can point at the reds or the blue or the green or the shades of white and yellow, and we cover all those colors with the music we make.
Amazing. We've got about 2 minutes, and I really have two more questions that I wanted to focus on, just in the same sense of picking out a really great piece that anyone would have to wrap their schedule around, thinking about a great accomplishment. If you could gauge your greatest accomplishment or a singularly important accomplishment in your field.
I'm glad you typified that by saying in your field. Obviously, having a family, marrying Karen and having our kids, that's been number one. But in my field, I think taking this orchestra with what existed here in 1984 in Charleston to next year will be my 20th year with the orchestra, and looking forward and looking back to what's been accomplished and what we have yet to accomplish. Just building the artistic level of this orchestra to the point where in 4 rehearsals, which is the same number of rehearsals the Boston Symphony or the Chicago Symphony has, the same number of rehearsals, taking any kind of repertoire, any kind of program, and making it sound world class. That's been to me the greatest pride of by taking clay and getting our hands right into that clay and molding something. That's been tremendous, tremendous accomplishment. I can, with great fondness, remember many concerts. I can single out certain evenings of music making, whether it was here or overseas, with different orchestras or different performers, different soloists, that stand out in my memory as being highlights. Emotionally, one of the highlights was after Hurricane Hugo, when no one had power, when we didn't even have television here in Charleston, but public TV came down and we did an outdoor concert 2 weeks after the hurricane in the afternoon, the steps of the Custom House, a couple blocks from here, and thousands upon thousands of people came and put down their chainsaws. Some of them actually brought them as jokes to the site, and we did an outdoor concert. We had singers coming in at no cost to us, at their expense, and lifting the spirits of the community back in October of '89. That was a real rallying point of bringing the community together. I was very proud of how music could bring a community together. And I think since September 11th, there have been some concerts, like when we did the Berlioz Requiem last year, that had people in tears because it was the memories of what had happened a few weeks earlier. And there's no question that music plays a significant role in the emotional content of everyone's life. Spirituality is never more heightened than by the intensity of certain pieces of music. And it's great to be part of a musical life and to have music playing such an important part in my life.
Very definitely. Hey, I'm sure I was thinking a couple minutes ago we had room for 2 more questions, but you've given me the opportunity to be able to ask you back on another time because there's another question we'd like to get into it as to who's your greatest inspiration. But we'll wait another time on Carolina People. David Stahl, too difficult to wrap up almost, the director and maestro, conductor, the Charleston Symphony Orchestra. Catch him here, catch him in Munich, just catch him. David, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Good morning. Thanks. Good to be here.
Stay tuned for Carolina People coming up next. We want to thank the Butler family and all the staff here at Luden's for making Carolina People such a great success.